No matter how extreme my listening habits get, I will always be a nu metal kid at heart.
It's not a phase.
Today we are ranking the albums of KITTIE through their new album Fire, but we are starting with Spit in 1999. Now, I loved this album as a kid, and it still has some bangers for me, but I don't think it's held up as well as a whole as some of my favorite old nu metal faves. The title track is a sick way to open the record, and Charlotte has a really infectious groove, great 1-2 punch way to set the tone. I also really love the drumming on Do You Think I'm a Whore, and the groove of Raven, Suck, Trippin', and Johnny are also fun, but the real spotlight track for me continues to be Brackish. I still get the urge to break something every time I listen to that one. Some inconsistent songwriting that doesn't hit the same as maybe it did back then, and possibly controversial opinion, but I have never liked Paper Doll. That said, it's one that I still do enjoy coming back to periodically. Some of that may be nostalgia talking, so I am putting this one at favorite. Note, that is not perfection. I do not think this is a perfect album, and again, I think there are other albums from this even same year that I think are way better. But moving on though, we have Oracle in 2001. Transitioning into a slightly heavier sound here, moving a little bit away from some of the nu metal tropes, but there's still plenty of them there. This album was recorded as a trio following the departure of co-founding member and guitarist Fallon Bowman weeks before they recorded it. It's also the only album with bassist Talina Atfield, and this was one that really surprised me at how much I kind of dislike it now, which I think kind of pushes the nostalgia idea a little bit aside. There's some of that there, but like I should have nostalgia for this one too, and I actually kind of remembered liking this one more than the debut back in the day on some days, but not so much anymore. The songs just aren't as memorable with fewer standouts, not a single track that even comes close to Brackish either. I wouldn't say it's bad, it's totally listenable, it just kind of leaves my brain immediately as soon as it's over, so it is going to okay. They followed that up with Until the End in 2004. This is the only album with bassist Jennifer Arroyo, and it was written while the band was engaged in a lawsuit with Artemis Records. Fun stuff. More emphasis on melody with this one, I would say, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We'll get to some examples of where that actually really works for them soon enough, but here I feel like the execution is kind of clunky. It also just feels like a really slow album with a lot of the songs feeling kind of sleepy and dull, also just sort of a little bit lack of direction. The only single from this album was Into the Darkness, which is decent, but not really much more than that. Sugar and Burning Bridges are also solid. I'd say it lacks the charm or again the nostalgia of the first two without making any improvements. I'm curious how much strife at this time impacted their focus. So yeah, I'm putting this one at meh, which may be another controversial opinion. I see some people rating this one higher, so I'm interested to hear what the viewers think about this one. And by the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to hit the like button and yeah, just comment your thoughts. These are just my own opinions. Also subscribe if you're new here or become a channel member for some extra perks. But next up, we have Funeral for Yesterday in 2007. Moving even more into a clean singing and kind of rock focus on this one. There are still some harsh moments here and there, like Flower of Flesh and Blood, This Too Shall Pass, and Witch Hunt, but right from the opening title track, it seems clear where the emphasis is. I almost feel like I'm listening to like a Heart song with that one. Fun little guitar hook too on Will to Live. I'd say this one's not terrible. I'm sure plenty of kids were jamming out to this, but I'd much rather listen to like Paramore, Flyleaf, or even In This Moment for this style overall. I don't think it's nearly as catchy as any of those. Even so, I actually feel like I enjoy listening to this one more than Until the End, at least from start to finish. I catch myself at least bobbing my head and tapping my foot to tracks like Summer Dies. It's got some energy even if it's not as heavy, so this one landed at okay as well. Then we got In the Black in 2009. I'd say this is a bit of a return to their heavier elements after the softer turn of that last album. Also a record I had not previously listened to until years after it came out, but I was pleasantly surprised. They definitely raised my eyebrows when My Plague kicked in. Not only are the chunky riffs pretty fun, Morgan's kind of blackened death metal style snarl is pretty damn wicked. Honestly, I think this is the best her harsh vocals had sounded actually to date, in my opinion, and her singing is pretty damn solid too. I see a lot of growth on this one. So yeah, when I I checked this out for the first time doing it for one of my new metal rankings, I enjoyed it quite a bit, a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'm not going to overhype it and say it's like the best album ever or anything like that, but for 2009, it's not bad at all and worth checking out for tracks like Forgive and Forget and Cutthroat. I'm actually putting this one at great tier. Then we got I've Failed You in 2011. Pretty strong start with the title track, super fast and aggressive, maybe even a little thrashy at times. It definitely feels like we're picking up where the last album left off. We Are the Lamb slows things down again for kind of a Blackened vibe, but with a little arch enemy in there as well, maybe. Still some clean singing, taking me back to the early days as on Whisper of Death, and I also dig the chuggy Ugly. I would like some more fast tracks because while track 2 feels like a good pace change, they kind of lean slower and slower for a good stretch after that, to the point that it becomes a little tedious around What Have I Done. Some of the guitar work has kind of a sludgy, bluesy, almost like High on Fire vibe at times, but fails to reach the same level. Come Undone definitely gets my head bobbing though. Still better than some of the records, but not as strong as the last one, I would say. It starts on almost as high a note, but then it kind of like peters out over time. I'm going to put this one at good. Another one I'm curious to hear what you all think, because the Metal Storm ratings had this one actually above In the Black. So maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. But that brings us to Fire in 2024. Their first album in 13 years. I was really not expecting this, and count me intrigued. By the way, if you want to get caught up, you can check out a great little video on their history from the YouTube channel Rock and Roll True Stories. Another fairly strong opener with the title track, once more calling back to the mix of drifty, clean vocals and harsh screams that gravitated me towards them in the first place. Solid groove and clanky bass driving I Still Wear the Crown. Maybe not the most exciting track, but pretty enjoyable. I'm not a big fan of Wound or Falter. They're not bad, just kind of forgettable, but fortunately the latter is followed by one of my favorites in Vultures. Great heavy verses and more memorable chorus on this one. We Are Shadows made for another solid single in a similar vein. I like the power of that building melody on the chorus. More strong, deeper cuts here too in Are You Entertained and Grime, the latter being another one of the heaviest moments, I would say, as is single Eyes Wide Open, making for a strong closer, which is what played at the top. And then the track that really kind of surprised me was One Foot in the Grave. I didn't really like the more pop rock sounding direction of this one at first, but I can't deny just how much that chorus hook wormed its way into my brain. I found myself humming it a lot working on this video, and it really grew on me. It almost feels like a Paramore song. Overall, I went into this with relatively low expectations, just some curiosity, but I quite enjoyed this record. I often find myself missing the heavier tinged radio rock and metal of the 2000s. So much of what comes out for the mainstream audience now just feels so safe and milquetoast, whereas this feels like it has that perfect balance of general audience consumability, but with enough grit to act as like a gateway to heavier things. I'd go so far as to say that this is one of their best records from start to finish, top 3 easily. So great job. I still don't think that they've quite had an album worthy of what I would call perfection tier on a lot of my other lists, but I'd like to hear more if they can step it up from this already strong new foundation that they're building here. So ultimately, this one went to great tier. Y'all check out this playlist for plenty more new metal rankings and videos, or check out this video for your own specific recommendation, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.